Hello and welcome to the Critically Clueless. I'm a monk, and today we are in Age of Wonders 4, and this is a beginner's guide video. This beginner's guide is all about your empire progression and the affinity skills that you can pick up along the way that help shape your empire. Now, there are a lot to go through because there are a lot of different affinities. Every single different line of affinity have 13 different skills. And depending on your choice in your story, it's going to rapidly change which ones you can actually pick up and when you can pick them up. Now, before we really begin this video, we have to talk about affinities themselves and what exactly are they. Now, affinities, be it order, chaos, nature, material, astral, or shadow, make up the very chemistry of your empire and, of course, your playstyle. And you can pick up certain points or attribute points into any one of these infinities, be it when you're creating your character, when you're choosing which tome to learn spells from, or simply by completing missions and completing actions within any given game. And if we look top right of my screen, we can see that I have 7 affinity points into chaos. Now, what that means is that every single turn that passes, every single turn that I skip or play through, I will gain 7 points in that affinity. Just like I have 2 points in nature. So every single turn that passes, I will also gain 2 points into nature. The same with order, as I happen to have a point in order as well. Now, another good question to answer would be, how do I actually get these points? Now, as I touched on earlier, creating your character, be it when you're creating whether they are a dark character, for instance, or a feudal or a barbarian, as you can see, we have affinity points that we can choose when we're kitting out our character's heritage or their traits, even up to the very tome that you pick before you start your game as well. One side note about the tomes, which is really interesting to point out, is that every different affinity tome counts as 2 points towards that chosen affinity. And in after character customization, as you play through the game, unlock more spells. And when the game asks you to pick yet another tome, that will also stack your affinity points. So for instance, as you can see top right of our screen, we have 2, 2, and 2. Well, if we pick a brand new tome with a different affinity that we haven't got, or pick one of the affinities that we already currently have points in, those points will change and or stack. So if in this case we pick a shadow tome, as you can see, we now have 2 shadow affinity points. Therefore, every single turn that passes in our game, we'll be earning 2 points towards that stat line. And as you meet all the requirements for yet another perk that you can choose within the empire progression, the game will naturally prompt you to that screen. Or of course you can manually go there yourself by pressing triangle or Y, depending on which console you're going on, and hitting that empire progression. Now, there are 6 different scales here that we can fill up and choose perks from. You have got your core, your material, your chaos, your shadow, your astral, your order, and your nature. And of course, if you include your core, then there's actually 7 different ones here to choose from. You're never going to be able to pick every single one in any one playthrough. There's simply too many. So trying to figure out the kind of gameplay that you want to go through is going to be important. And that's where this video comes in. I'm going to go through the different affinities there are and what I would consider the best perks to pick up along your way, depending on which one we're actually going through. Now, in order to actually pick up any of these perks, you're going to need something called Imperium, and it's a currency that your empire will earn as you play through your game. It's also the same currency you use to turn a vassal into your very own city. So let's go through the core affinities first, because you're going to be using most of these. In fact, throughout all of your playthroughs, this is the one that you're going to be able to get every single time, because every single affinity point you have in any one affinity actually counts towards core. Now, the first few perks you can pick are basic seafaring, excavation, road building. All of these help your civilization move across the map more effectively. Now, a really interesting one to pick up is actually expanded governance. This boosts your city cap by 1, meaning you're allowed to have more cities than the basic amount. And trust me, that's really useful, because if you go over that, there's some huge debuffs. Now, luckily, core isn't the only way that you can pick up an extra one to your city cap, but it is one that you're probably going to want to pick up every single playthrough, unless you're planning to play tall. And by that, I mean playing by extremely limited cities. Another good one to mention is diplomatic focus. This gives you an extra whispering stone. Now, these whispering stones can be given to free cities in order to get them to be bonded to you, to be vassalized to you, and eventually be integrated into your empire. The more whispering stones you have, the more people you're able to talk to with at the same time. Next up, we have Right of the Last Stand. Each city in your empire loses 1 population, but immediately summons 3 tier 1 units. Now, depending on how many cities you have, depending on where they are situated, this can be extremely useful, especially if you're being attacked, if you need emergency troops. And for only 150 Imperium, it doesn't matter if you have 1 city or 10 cities, it can be extremely useful. Advanced Sensory basically means that your cities are able to see a little bit further through the old fog of war. Next up, we have Forced March, which means that your troops are able to move that much further. There is a debuff penalty for this, however, but in my opinion, in a pinch, it could be rather useful. Next up, we have Siege Specialization. Again, this is an extra one that can be used especially late game. You will be sieging a lot of cities. There are typically 2 slots in which you can do something, perform something to help your army out. This gives you an extra slot. It can be really useful, and I'd recommend picking it up if you're able to. And lastly, perhaps the most important perk that you can pick up within the core scheme is teleporters. Basically, you can teleport your army here, there, and everywhere. Sometimes the maps are rather large. Sometimes you have 2-3 armies in a different place, and you're going to need them across the map sharpish. This is how you can get it done. There are other ways to have it, of course, so you don't feel like you have to rely on getting this perk in order to have a teleporter, but it is the easiest way. Now, first up, we have Materium Affinity, and the first perk that I want to recommend picking up, not saying the others aren't worth picking up, but the one that I would go to is Warsmithing. Warsmithing is brilliant. Now, mines grant 10 extra draft, along with the cash that you get from having a mine. And trust me, guys, you're going to want to have a mine because you're going to want to have cash. Cash can be used in every single city, but draft can be used in the city that it's made in. This means you're able to bring out more troops faster. Troops cost money and, of course, time. This means that it's quicker for you to get these troops out, and you can actually afford to do so. Next up, we have Specialist Districts. Now, Specialist Districts improvements grant an extra 5 gold with this. So for every single one you put down, you're also getting that extra gold. 5 gold may not sound a lot, but in a game like this, after you've played for a while, you realize it's actually a really decent return. It does cost 200 Imperium to actually get going, but we are talking about mid-game here. Therefore, in my opinion, it's totally worth picking up. And sticking on the old wealth side of things, Right of Wealth, oh my god guys, 250 Imperium, and you get instantly 2,000 gold. Now gold can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used for buying buildings, buying troops, and of course straight outright having them be done this turn. Gold is seriously useful, including being needed for the basic upkeep of your army itself. And of course, you get this as soon as you activate this perk. So you don't have to get it immediately. You can save it there and until you need that kind of money or until you need to rush a ton of troops and just purchase it when ready. Next up, I want to talk about Siege Masters. Now, just like within the core, this gives you an extra Siege project slot. But on top of that, it actually cuts the price by 25%. Some of these things can be relatively expensive. We're not talking extravagant. Some of them are like £100, so it's going to save you 25, or some of them are 250. Either way, doing it cheaper is worthwhile, especially if you're going to spend the Imperium in the first place. Or maybe you're just like me and have your eyes on conquering the entire map. Now, the last one I want to talk about in this line is Right of the Dreadnought. This one is absolutely beastly. Your currently activated troops, meaning every single troop you got on that field, is permanently increased and buffed by 1 defense and 1 resistance. Personally, I love this one. It does cost 350 Imperium. It is rather expensive, but depending on how many troops you got on that field at the time, depending on, if you're currently at war or whatnot, this can be a serious booster. Next up, let's talk about my favorite Affinity, Chaos. And let's get stuck straight in with Call of Chaos. Defeating an infestation grants you a unit based on the infestation defeated. Basically means, guys, you get free troops. You don't even have to train them. And sticking with smart thinking, how about battlefield looting? Gain 3 gold per unit tier of the units you killed in combat. So the more you go around killing things, the more money you're gonna earn. And we've already talked about how important gold is. And of course, as we're talking about battle, let's stick with that theme. Lure of the Horde. When you win a battle, you have a 50% chance to actually gain a tier 1, tier 2 unit that can be produced in a city. So when you win a battle, heads and tails, you're going to get another troop out of it. I use this, and honestly, more often than not, I'm wondering where these troops are actually coming from half the time, and I forget that I even picked up that perk. One of my favorite perks to pick up, though, is Right of War. You instantly summon a bandit army under your control. It goes to your main city, your throne city, but this can be tier 1, 2, or 3 units. You don't get any extra hero, but you do get some decent troops. I like this. It doesn't cost much Imperium, and it's instantaneous when you need it. And the last one I want to talk about here is Right of the Chosen Warriors. Guys, your cities gain 500 draft this turn. Now, that's amazing. Depending on how many cities you have, depending on what's happening in your game, this can be a true game changer. If you're going to war with half the map, you can instantly spring up an army. It has countless uses, and I kind of feel this one might be nerfed because it is seriously overpowered. Now, I don't like making a habit of going to the end tier ones because in order to get to that end tier perk, you're going to need like 8 infinity points for a hell of a long time. However, As we were talking about overpowered really quickly, you have also got right of possession for 500 Imperium, which is ridiculous. You get to spawn a Bowler to your throne city with the power of slaughter. This is a huge, powerful beast. Absolutely one man wrecking crew, 150 health, mythical unit. If you need a city defended, or if you want to go absolutely hammer on someone not too far away, this could well be the unit for you, except you're going to have to wait a very long time. I'm just saying. Next up, we have Shadow Affinity. In my opinion, this goes really well with Chaos Theory. And first up, let's talk about the very first perk, Knowledge Extraction. Gain 50 knowledge per level of hero defeated in combat. If you get this early in your game, this can be seriously good, because the more knowledge you have, the quicker you're going to be flying through those times. Next up, and we're skipping a few now, it is Stolen Power. In this, you gain 200 mana and 200 knowledge upon completing conquest of a city. So if you're like me and you like to go out and destroy all those cities, that's 200 extra knowledge. For me, it's the knowledge which is the most powerful bit here. That 200 plus knowledge is really useful. Again, once again, you are going to be completing those tomes rather quickly with this. Next up, let's talk about Court of Whispers. Gain the ability to assign a Whispering Stone to other empires' vassals to gain their tribute. You also get an extra Whispering Stone. Of course, the more Whispering Stones you have, the more people we can talk to, make alliances with, and of course, gain those vassals. And lastly, we're finishing on a big one. You have got Right of Forbidden Knowledge. You instantly gain 500 knowledge with this. Now, it does cost 250 Imperium, but if you ask me, that is damn cheap and can instantly finish one of those huge spells, tomes that you're trying to finish off. This is really good. Use it wisely. I do also feel like the last perk in this line, in the shadow line, that you can get is worth talking about. It's Spying Shadows. Now, once again, this is 500 Imperium. It's going to take you a damn long time to work your way up this ladder as well. But if you get it, you reveal the full map. So if you're playing on one of those huge maps, and you want to, every single thing that that map has to offer, where it is the artifacts, or whether you just want to wipe everyone off, you feel like someone's hiding somewhere, it reveals absolutely everything. Worth thinking about, even if it's going to be extremely hard to get. Next up, we have the Astral, and we also have, first of all, Astral Inspiration. Whenever a new research skill is researched, knowledge cost of another random skill is reduced by 25%, basically meaning you're able to get through those tomes much quicker. Anything that helps you with knowledge in this game, or with cash in this game, is really useful. That being said, adaptive research is also worth picking up for only 100 Imperium. Locking and shuffling research costs 50% less. Research structures cost 50% less. Gold and production to build as well. For me, it's that research shuffling. So sometimes you have 3 different tomes for you to research. You don't want to do any of them. You have to pay to shuffle them up. It's cheaper this way. Another perk I really like is Rites of the Astral Summon. You immediately summon an army of magical origin units to your throne city. Again, just like with the other one we mentioned, it's going to be tier 1, 2, and 3 troops. Really handy in a pinch. Only costs 250 Imperium. I think it's worth holding on to when you need to rush a city, don't have the troops, or of course need to defend your throne city. And lastly, within the Astral line, we have got Ingredient Experimentation. Your throne city gains 15 knowledge for each magic material your empire has access to. And as you play through your game, guys, you're going to be picking up a lot of these things. Therefore, this is potentially a huge knowledge dump into your game. Very useful to pick up. Next up, we have the Order Affinity. This is one of my favorite affinities. And first of all, we are going to start with Purification. Destroying an infestation or conquering a free city grants you a stacking 300 relation to all other 3 cities for 10 turns. Now this does stack, meaning the more you do this, the more extra relation you're going to get with these people, meaning guys, it's going to be quicker for you to vassalize them. Next up, we have diplomatic channels. This is really easy. This is really quick. You get yourself an extra whispering stone. We've already mentioned why they're useful. This one, however, only costs you 75 Imperium to get. Next up, we have career soldiers. Shock units, shield units, polearm units gain experience 20% faster, meaning guys that they level up from standard troops to elite troops to champion troops to legendary troops that much quicker. You want your troops to level up because you want them to be more hardy. Bog standard troops just don't really cut it in this game. You want them to evolve as quick as possible. Next up, you have the Right of Enduring Duty. All your units instantly regain hit points and non-hero units regain 1 rank. I love this, it's brilliant, only costs 250 Imperium and helps rank rather quickly. Also, sometimes your troops can get rather injured, it can take a long time for them to heal. This kind of speeds up that. Next up, we have House Levies. Recruiting units during the Rally of Levies costs 50% less. Now, if anyone's had a go at doing this yet, recruiting and calling up those levies can be very expensive. This does cost 350 Imperium, however, so you're kind of, knocking off one resource for another. But I think it's worth picking up if you manage to get down here and if you plan to do a lot of war. And lastly, just because I think the Order Affinity is so good, Knightly Order, if you manage to get down here, if you invest enough time in it, is very powerful. Units of legendary rank all get buffed depending on the type of unit they are. It does cost 500 Imperium, and it is going to be one of those things that if you want, you're going to have to invest in early. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have the Nature Affinity. Fruitful Intrigation is the first one I want to talk about. Founding or absorbing a city takes less 2 turns. It does take kind of a long time to do this normally. New founded cities and absorbed cities also gain extra population. This saves you a huge amount of time, guys. Absolutely worth picking up, and it's going to be cheap as chips. And the next one I want to talk about happens to be right next to it. This one means your farms get an extra 5 food, which is kind of huge. It almost doubles what your farms actually produce. Anything that gives extra goods when it comes to your provinces, in my opinion, absolutely worthwhile. And again, another one to pick up would be Natural Recovery. Your units regenerate an additional 15 health points per turn while you're in your own domain. And anything that heals your troops and means you don't have to make, pay, and wait for another troop is good in my books. That being said, Expert Sailors is also a great one to pick up. Coast and river provinces grant an extra 2 food. Now, food is very important because the more food you have inside your city, the faster it grows, the more provinces you have, and it's just all goodness for you. And as we just spoke about population, Right of Expansive Growth is fantastic. All cities within your empire instantly gain 1 population for only 250 Imperium. This is kind of a mid-game pickup as well, and it doesn't matter how many cities you've got, you're going to be getting that 1 extra population. I think this is huge, guys. Definitely worth saving for when you have or want that extra boost. But there you go, guys. That is my lowdown on affinities and how exactly you go about getting them, which ones I think you should focus on picking or at least working towards. I would also say, remember, you don't have to go down one line, don't have to just go down two lines. You can pick up extra infinity points as you play through this game, as you unlock different tomes. So no two playthroughs are probably ever going to be the same. You're never going to have just, one affinity line, or at least I very much doubt it. Experiment with your playthrough and let me know down in the comments your favorite perks, your favorite combinations to play through. I'd be really interested to know what you guys actually go for. And of course, if you stuck through this entire video of 25 minutes of me just talking, hopefully hoping you understand this mechanic, a big thank you to you. We do actually have an active and growing Discord as well. We've got a few Age of Wonders players inside. If you want to join, chat about the game, share your journey, or just ask for help, feel free to join. The link is down in the description. We welcome all new people. But until next time, I've been a monk, we've been a Critically Clueless, and I will see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy and happy gaming.